It's 6 o'clock on February 13th, 2023, and I will call this meeting of the Chelmsford Select Board to order. Would you please join me in the pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first up we have our public service announcements. Evelyn, would you like to start?
Thank you very much for having me here. I pretty much appear before your committee once or twice a year for the Arts and Technology Education Fund. It was started in 1996, and I think we're the only town in the Commonwealth that has a bylaw that governs it. The others are a little bit different. It started with a home rule petition at the state level for scholarships, and then it expanded to an education fund, which is what we do. And the source of our funding is a tax checkoff on your real estate tax bills or your excise tax bills. And the real estate tax bills have already been sent in, but everybody's got their excise tax bills, so there's a tear-off that's there. And you can put how much money you want to donate. You can round up any of your bills, and you can give that money as long as you notate for the town treasurer to be able to put that money into our account. Pretty much that's where we get all of our money. Sometimes we see in the donations, because we get an accounting through the town accountant's office, how much is being deposited. Sometimes it's 69 cents, so somebody is rounding up. So it's kind of funny to see all those little numbers, but they do add up after a while. So I'm here to announce our new 2023-2024 application process. We're a little late announcing that because usually I come in January, and the reason is because we changed a few things on the application, and because we come under open meeting law, we have to make sure that we meet and address the issues publicly, and everything is filed appropriately under that particular law. The applications are available on the town website, and they also will be mailed out and are available on the school website itself. The people that can apply for these funds are the staff of the Chelmsford Public School System. This is to enhance and support the curriculum. Somebody asked me about coaches and about clubs and things, and that's not part of the curriculum of the Chelmsford Public Schools. If you are awarded money that buys an item, that becomes the property of the Chelmsford Public Schools. It's tax dollars that buy it, and it's tax dollars that's going to support that. And we check a number of things. So when anybody that might be listening is going to access our application, we do have a cover letter. I would recommend people reading it. I don't think that they always read it because of some of the things that we see in our applications from the past. And so we do have that cover letter, and then we made the changes for the dates on that. We changed the first page of the application slightly. We want to make sure that people know that their applications are going to go to the town manager's office, and sometimes they go to the town clerk's office. When they go to the town clerk's office, we had that occur, in case anybody ever asks you, because years ago we didn't have the internet to be able to file everything electronically, and we needed things postmarked or date stamped, and the easiest place was the town clerk's office. So most of the applications we now receive are through the internet, that they're all online. So on that application, obviously we've changed the dates on it, but we also changed the amount this year that we would like to award. We've started at $500, we went to $750, and this is the first year we're starting at $1,000. We want to see if anybody has a little bit more creativity, see if we get any kind of different applications, because now it's a little bit more money that might be more appealing to the staff or those that may be applying. We also added a couple of questions that the applicants should access their building superintendent or their principal, whoever might be their department head or their curriculum coordinator, to make sure that they understand what it is they're applying for, because many times they don't know. And it may also be something that could be supported in that building's budget for the year. So there's a lot of things that we see, there's a lot of trends that we've seen over the years through these applications that give some indication of where some of the technology should be going, something brand new. When they had the Elmo cameras, when they first had digital cameras, I mean, we were getting loads of applications with regard to that. So we let the different ones know in the school department, we're seeing a trend here. You need to put that in your budget, because if everybody wants them, it's got to be some kind of a reason for that. And so we are in communication all the time with the Chelmsford Public Schools administration and some of their staff members. So this application is now available online, and it is due by March 31st. That is the deadline. Either you get it in via the online process, or you send it in the mail and make sure that it is dated prior to March 31st. What was interesting last year is I got one in my, through my email, March 31st. It was like at 10 o'clock at night. So they made it because it's there, it's legal. And I was a little bit amused at that. It didn't affect anything, but it was kind of neat. After we get all of the applications, the committee members, we have 8. We do have 1 vacancy. It consistently appears, and so if anybody that is listening to this wants to be on our committee, we would welcome them, and so that we would have a full 9-member committee. The school superintendent, by law, is always a member, or his designee. So we will be accepting all of those applications, screening the applications, and the committee meets. They go through everything. We have our criteria. A lot of it is very clear on the application what it might be, and then we will either accept the applications or deny them. And some of them, if we need to, we invite them in for interviews. It's very exciting to sit and listen to how excited the teachers are and knowledgeable about all of the different new things that are out there that they want to provide for their students. So does anybody have any questions? Well, thank you very much for listening, and I hope we have a lot of applications this year. Take care, and happy Valentine's Day early.
Okay, next up we have Representative Trahan.
Yes, so Lori Trahan is posting her office hours. So if you can't make it to the Lowell office, and she's going to be hosting them in Lowell, then that's open 5 days a week. You're able to meet a member of our team if you're having any issues or having any federal agencies such as the IRS, Social Security, or VA, or more. And they'll take time to hear your concerns and get to work and getting the assistance that you need. So she's posted her office hours for spring of '23 in Fitchburg, Lawrence, Acton, Hudson, and Concord. And you can look at the brochure online. It's attached to our agenda tonight.
Thank you, Ken. Next up, we have Neshoba Valley.
So the Chelmsford Select Board and School Committee will meet on March 13th to appoint 1 representative to the Neshoba Valley Technical High School Committee for a 3-year term ending March 31st, 2026. Applications are available on the town website at www.chelmsfordma.gov. Application should be forwarded to the town manager's office at 50 Billerica Road, and those are due by 4 p.m. on Wednesday, March 8th.
Okay.
And our last public service announcement is Save a Life, Learn How to Recognize an Overdose. And the Chelmsford Health Department is giving free Narcan training. And if you attend the training, you'll get free Narcan. This training will be held on February 28th. There'll be 3 sessions, one at 9 a.m., 12 p.m., and 6 p.m. And they'll be held here, Chelmsford Town Hall, Fire Department Training Room on the lower level. It's open to all. Registration is required and the space is limited. So if you would like to register, you can register at the www.chelmsfordma.gov.
Thank you, Ken. Next up, we have public input. Do we have anyone who would like to speak? I'm not seeing anyone here or in the Zoom room, so we'll move to committee vacancies.
Committee vacancies for the week of February 13th, 2023. The Arts and Technology Education Fund has 1 unexpired 3-year term. Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee is looking to fill 1 seat, and that's a 3-year term. CCA Advisory Committee has 2 1-year terms. Commissions on Disabilities looking to fill 1 3-year term. Community Action Program Committee has 4 1-year terms. Community Preservation Fund has 1 3-year term. Council on Aging Board is looking to fill 1 seat, and that's a 3-year term. Cultural Council, 1 unexpired 3-year term. The Holiday Decorating Committee has 1 1-year term. The Parade Committee, all applicants are welcome. Those are 1-year terms, and those end each July 31st each year. Permit Building Committee has 1 3-year term. Recycling Committee has 1 1-year term. The Roberts Field Advisory Committee has 1 1-year term. If any of these committees are of interest to you, please complete an online application available on the town website, or for more information, you can contact the town manager's office here at 50 Billerica Road. You can send an email to tmoffice@chelmsfordma.gov, or you can call on the phone 978-250-5202.
Thank you, Ken. Next up, we have the one-day beer and wine license for St. John's Evangelist Church. Is anyone here from the church? I don't see anyone. Does the board have any questions that they need clarified?
I don't think this is a recurring one, but
No,
they
The
do.
location is.
Yes, the
event
location's
is-
the
recurring.
event is
but-
not recurring.
Right,
but-
so I don't see a problem there.
Okay. If there's no other questions or concerns, I'll take a motion.
So I'll make a motion to approve the application for a one-day beer and wine license to be held at St. John the Evangelist Church, 115 Middlesex Street on February 19th, 2023.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
5-0. Okay, Paul, I'll turn this one over to you.
Yeah, Select Board members, Dr. Jay Lang, Superintendent of the Schools, is joining us remotely this evening. This is regarding the McCarthy Middle School Tennis Court Working Group recommendations. And when this report was sent by email from Dr. Lang to Chair Timmons and me, the chair thought it'd be appropriate to have Jay sort of give the board an overview and then obviously provide the board with a clear understanding and answer any questions they have in terms of the work that's proposed under the project on the McCarthy School site. So, good evening, Jay.
Hi, good evening, Paul, and good evening, Select Board members.
Thanks for joining us. Do you want to give any synopsis of this at all, or?
If you think it'd be helpful, I'd be happy just to give a quick overview,
Sure.
and then can happily answer any questions. So there was a discussion at town meeting last spring with regard to the use of the tennis court area right adjacent to McCarthy Middle School. There was some question about refurbishment. There was a question about potentially adding some additional parking spaces and a little walkway to be able to get to the police department community meeting room. Ultimately, after town meeting, there was a discussion with the town manager and also the school committee about putting a little working group together to take a look at that space and what might be a good use for it going forward, kind of a holistic look at the space. So we did convene a working group that met 3 different times at the end of the last school year and heading into the summer. We looked at the existing condition of the tennis court, the whole area that comprises that particular location, and talked a little bit about what that area might be used for going forward. The group did decide to send a little survey out to the community to get some input on what potential use for that particular facility may be, so that's included in the report. And then I took the lead on just kind of summarizing the group's work and then bringing that back to the school committee. We met on February 7th, and I just reviewed this report with them as well. And one of our other charges was to share that with the select board and town manager when we were done, so that's why I had forwarded it along to you. Just as way of background as well, the McCarthy Tennis Court project is a project that was on the town's capital list for a potential fiscal 25 year capital project. So not this coming spring, but it was a year out. So I think actually the group getting together was timely to be able to kind of toss around some different ideas for the space. We had some very good discussion. I think the group in the end felt that a mixed use refurbishment of that particular area was probably best for the community, potentially to include some tennis courts, some pickleball courts, basketball courts, a potential wall ball for tennis, things along those lines. So that is something I think the school would support, because obviously that space could be used during the school day, either during phys ed classes or recess. Something that the kids could actually utilize would certainly be advantageous. We do also think that it would be appropriate to look at some type of parking and a pathway to go from the parking lot to the police department to make better access of the community meeting room at the police department. So I think everyone in the group, kind of felt a mixed use venue was probably appropriate. A next step would be to secure some funding for some type of a landscape architect to take a look at that particular area, some of the grading, maybe do some kind of layovers of the space to see exactly what could be incorporated into that. And again, we have about 8 months or so because the town capital planning process starts in the fall. So in the fall of 23 is when we would actually be discussing that to go forward. So that was the discussion of the group. I will say one other thing came up during the group's talk because the subject of a wall ball for lacrosse, which has become very popular, came up, and there was a little discussion about well, could you have tennis on one side and lacrosse on another side? And in the end, we said that's probably not the best use just because the balls are so hard with lacrosse. We wouldn't want someone getting hurt. We started then talking about, the other areas of town where we potentially could put some type of a lacrosse wall because, again, that is quite popular. There was also discussion around, say, the tennis courts at the high school, which are going to be redone hopefully the end of the summer, early fall, with some basketball and some street hockey courts, which I think everyone is very excited about. A question about, how many tennis courts should we be putting at the McCarthy property if there were going to be new tennis courts at the high school. That then kind of led to a discussion around South Row, which has a number of tennis courts now, which are kind of nearing something being done with them in the relatively short term. So the group also just kind of wanted to point out that this is certainly beyond the scope of our initial work, and we had to kind of rein it back in, but it really even expands beyond the school department. But, is there any interest in some type of a town-wide look at recreational areas or facilities and usage and things like that to almost kind of create a master plan for recreational areas in the long term in Chelmsford? What should be developed? How many of different things do we need? Again, it was a little bit outside the scope of the group, but I think people just had a general sense of wanting to do good for the town and have some foresight and some planning in years to come with regard to recreational spaces and what would make the best use of them. And again, we had to kind of curtail that talk because that wasn't the necessary purpose of our group, but it was to bring this report back to the school committee and then obviously the town manager and the select board with regard to next steps. So as I indicated, or actually Paul indicated, I just conveyed a copy of the report to the chair and Paul after our school committee meeting last week. And again, next steps would be allocating a little bit of money to hire someone to do some legwork on the site and come up with some different renderings of what potentially could be included in the mixed use of the McCarthy tennis courts area when that comes forward for capital in fiscal 25. So I'm happy to answer any questions or share any additional thoughts, but just wanted to provide that as a general overview.
Questions? I think that your committee set a record for getting the most public input on a survey. That was great.
Well, we did get a lot of input, and I think we're fortunate that we actually get a very good response anytime we email the school folks. They're used to seeing our communications come on a regular basis, and they're very eager to give their input, which is welcomed, obviously, always, but particularly in this particular case. So that was good, and we had our whole committee sharing it out on different town social media sites. So we did get some very good feedback.
Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, just a follow-up to that, the question about the overall recreational plan asset for the town. There is a vehicle for that, and it's the town has an open space and recreation plan that was last updated in the end of 2017 and was accepted by the state in 2018, which obviously is 5 years ago. These plans are done under the auspice of the Conservation Commission because it's the first words are open space. Why I mention this is these plans generally go about 5 to 7 years, and it's a great suggestion, and so I wanted the board to know that that is a valid concern. It's something we should do. So last Friday was the deadline to submit expressions of interest to the Northern Middlesex Council of Government for, you remember these projects like helping with the housing production plan and so MBTA zoning and so forth. So I sat down with David Kuntz, our conservation agent, and Evan Belansky, our community development director, and we submitted an application to have NIMCOG assist the town with an update for this plan, but with a particular emphasis on the active recreation part of this, because I think it's a very valid concern. The plan tends to be more, shaded towards open space, but I think this could be the vehicle where we could get input and have a working committee, because generally these open space recreation plans have a committee, just like the master plan implementation committee, and really get some community input in terms of what are the desired open space recreational assets. One that we keep hearing from, I know Jay's here, Dr. Lang's hearing from it, I'm hearing about it, is pickleball, repeatedly about pickleball. But we've also had inquiries from some of the Youth Sports Association about field needs and so forth. So I just wanted to let the board know that we're sort of trying to launch this. I will let you know probably within your next meeting if our application has been accepted. Generally, NIMCOG has accepted the applications. We submitted 4. You may recall it was the housing MBTA zoning plan. One was the housing production plan. One was this one, and then the fourth one was it'll come to me. But there was a fourth one we also submitted that we discussed at a previous meeting. And I did actually see Jenny Raitt, the executive director at NIMCOG, this afternoon at a meeting in Tewksbury, and she indicated they did receive a large amount of plans, but she hopes that they'll be able to serve the needs of the community. So very valid idea and very timely as we're doing these other components of the town's infrastructure. So I wanted to let the board know that could be a very effective vehicle, basically having NIMCOG sort of serve as a facilitator and then having resident input on the committee as well as input by survey and other vehicles, because I think it's a very valid concern. So.
Thank you, Paul. Are there any other comments or questions?
Yeah, I just have a question. So let's say that gets approved and NIMCOG gets involved. What's the timing on that?
Basically, you could probably have it done probably by the end of the calendar year.
Okay, because I was thinking, even if there was a good draft,
Oh, yeah.
an idea, it would really help with whatever the capital plan might
Or
be
in
to do
October.
up there, because
Yeah.
otherwise we don't have the bigger picture in mind, which might be helpful
Yeah.
to guide whatever that capital project's going to be at McCarthy.
Yeah, but I would think that if we could get going, I would think by the fall, September timeframe, we should have an idea of where this is headed, and certainly have some input from the community to know. We hear occasionally outdoor basketball courts, we hear pickleball, and certainly the McCarthy falls into that. What happens in sort of where this comes from is when you deal in Dr. Lang's presentation, you hear about McCarthy School, South Road, tennis courts. The first threshold in doing anything on those school properties is the school committee, because those are school jurisdiction properties. But you're right, we want to sort of go beyond that. But yeah, I would think by then, by shortly after Labor Day, we should have a sense in terms of where this is going, and then what does it mean in terms of a plan for investment.
So it's what that plan will do, because I'm not familiar with it. That will update that, so we'll kind of have an inventory and update of everything we have.
Yes.
Kind of the gap or the delta, what's changed, what's been added, what maybe isn't, and so forth. Good.
And then, if I may, while I'm related to that, not next meeting, because we got a very busy agenda, but I think our meeting in March, I want to come back about the select board goal about how people can use the town's recreational plans and so forth. So again, all these things are sort of coming together in the planning process.
And I think Mark made a good point about informing the investment planning, but whatever preliminary information we have from that toward the end of next summer could also help inform any specific goals or actions
sure.
that the board wants to
For the board as
take in
well,
the
yeah.
next fiscal year, if
Definitely.
we want to set that, as one of our goals for the next year. Dr. Lang, you have your hand
Just
up?
one quick thing. Yes. Sorry, I'll lower my hand. I think that's actually quite timely. If that were to go through, I think one of the, and the group is really coming at this with the best of intentions. I think one of the things that we're a little bit limited by on the school side is we really only know and understand the recreational tie-ins that actually are like right adjacent to the schools. And, even when the discussion came up about, say, the tennis courts, I may not have like a town-wide look at exactly how many tennis courts, would be required for a town our size, or pickleball courts, things along those lines. So certainly that help from an outside group would be great. I think the other thing that came up in the group that people don't always understand either is the school areas, like say the tennis courts, things like that, are really not accessible to the public if they're built on school grounds during the school day when kids are in session. So the group also wanted to kind of have a broader discussion just about, where the town actually invests in recreational areas. They happen to be oftentimes near schools just because of some of the open space. But I liked what Paul was saying about the open space group looking at this as well, because there may be other areas of town that we're just not thinking of that aren't necessarily tied to a school that would have more accessibility and be open to the public during the time when schools are typically in session. That again, that we're just not kind of planning for or don't have at hand. So no, I think that would actually be very well received by the group.
Okay, anything else? Thank you, Jay.
Thank you, Jay. Thanks, Jay, for your time.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Okay, Paul, next up we have the strategic plan and growth strategy goals, so I thought I would
Sure.
introduce what you put in the
This is sort of
packet.
this is sort of the continuation of the discussion at the last meeting regarding the select board's strategic plan and growth strategy goal. And working with Evan Belansky, our community development director, he was able to come across some other communities who have looked at strategic plans. And having reviewed some of the examples, I think the one that best coincided with what I believe, and this is why I wanted to bring it to the board, was what I think the board may have in mind is the one that was done in Shrewsbury. As you can see, the actual strategic plan was just released, within the last several weeks, and the request for proposals went out in September of 2021. And it talks about a strategic plan project, and sort of lays out how, the sort of the product that the community was looking for. Now, when I reviewed this, a lot of this we've kind of covered in some respect when we did the vision and values. And so I think that was sort of covered by that. But I think that this could be the next step from that in terms of, getting, taking that as a departure to sort of doing a strategic planning process that and then I think obviously the key with the plan itself is it really identified specific action items. And if you've had a chance to thumb through the documents, it did go to things such as, green community type of ideas, energy sufficiency, sustainability, and then it had, various planning action items, which I think go towards the strategic plan, but also sort of the growth strategy in terms of basically what they were saying is what do they want the community to be in the year 2030, and then what were the action items to get there. And I think, but I wanted to confirm with the board, I think that's the goal I think was getting at is what's the plan, and then the growth strategy sort of follows and links into that plan, which is why it's an integrated goal. So I wanted to, in speaking with Virginia, I said, let me just bring this to the board and see if this is sort of, where we're thinking, and then we can continue the work even outside the meeting in terms of, the next steps in terms of, moving forward with this.
From my perspective, this is kind of exactly where I think we should be going.
Okay.
So, we did a lot of work with the committee on the vision and values. I think if someone were to come in as an outside facilitator to help us develop a strategic plan, they would probably help us validate that or see if there's any tweaks we want to make to that. But this is exactly what I was thinking in terms of an output. You basically wind up with some categories, if you will, of things the town wants to work on for the next however many years that we define the time horizon. And they have some nice strategic statements in there that are somewhat action-oriented, but under which year by year you can define what is your next set of goals and actions that goes along with kind of achieving that element of the strategy for the town. So from my perspective,
Right.
I think this, what Evan found is spot on.
Great. Good. It's always good when you get it right.
Well, what I found interesting is,
Well, then it's like, how much does it cost? But
what I found interesting is, when this goal came up, I don't know if you noticed, but I didn't say a lot because to me it was kind of abstract. I'm like, how do we do I know what we're saying, but how do you put it in this, hit the nail on the head, in my opinion, so.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Anybody else?
No, I think it looks great.
All right,
So do you know what it costs for them to
that'd be my next step, is we'll do some outreach to get a sense of the cost and what it would be in today's dollars, and then also sort of, draft using this as a template, draft an RFP, and then send it back to the board before we, formalize.
So we had, at our last discussion, we had talked about like doing some expressions of interest to just get some data points, but if this is the direction we want to
Yeah.
head, you don't think we need to do that
No,
step?
I
We
think
just-
the RFP will certainly
out there.
get more than expression of interest.
That'd be
so that's
great.
great, okay. Great, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, town manager bid awards?
Yes, I've got a series of Public Works bid awards for your confirmation this evening. The first one has to do with Stormwater Division handwork, which is the in-place bituminous work. And you can see there were 4 bids received for this work on Thursday, January 26th. The recommendations the board is to confirm the bid award to KB Aruda Construction at a bid price of $34,560. Do you want me to just go through all of them? That's probably the easiest thing. Okay.
Sure.
The next one is for tree removal and disposal. And again, this is to have a standing contract in place for for either emergency situations that we don't foresee, but also, regular work that takes place during the course of the fiscal year. And so you can see there were 2 bids received. The low bid was from Maya Tree Surface, and the bid price based on the assumption in the proposal was $100,840. We now move on to the school door hardware replacement projects. And the first one is for the Byam School. There were 5 proposals received, and the low bid with alternate was from New System Associates, LLC, at a total bid price with alternate of $138,400. The next one was for the door hardware at the community education facility, most formerly known as the Westland School. That also was the same company, New System Associates, LLC, and the bid price for that location of the 5 bids received, the low bid, which was $131,000. The next one was for the Harrington School door hardware replacement. Again, same 5 vendors, but the low bidder in this case was Camco Supply of Boston, doing business as Camco Lock Solutions. And again, with the bid alternate, the low bid was $140,600. So the good news is, again, with all those 3 projects of door hardware replacement, there were 5 bidders, and you can see with the other bids that the prices appear to be sound based on the market. And then the final bid was for the Chelmsford High School and the McCarthy School kitchen renovation projects, which this is for the design award for that project. The overall estimated construction cost for the 2 projects is $800,000. The design award is $100,000 for the, in this case, the recommendation is the bid award to JTA Inc. of Somerville in an amount not to exceed $100,000.
Are there any questions?
Yeah, the only question I had is on the locks and hardware.
Yeah.
So, have we used any of these vendors before?
They did reference checks. We've not used any of these companies directly before, but everything came back positive, which is what the Public Works does when after they receive the receipt of the awards. They go through and check with other communities, and again, there were no concerns received by Public Works.
Yeah, because it just seemed like, I think it's 3 out of 4 would go one way, and then 1 would go a different way, over $2,000 difference.
Yeah.
It seemed,
Yeah.
like, why are we doing that?
Well, again, the beauty is you've got the 2 projects, at the 2 element, at Byam and the community ed. As you can see, you're right, it was within a couple $1,000s.
Right.
And then the third one was Camco. Again, that was only a $1,400 difference, but it may actually give us a different perspective. We don't know that that the low, we've got all positive recommendations on all of them, but we'll see what our own experience has been. So we'll as you said, we've used different vendors in the past, but in speaking with Christine Clancy, the sense is that both these bidders were qualified, and we wanted to accept the alternate, so let's go with them as they played out.
Timeframes?
The goal is to have them done by the, start of the school year in September. That's the goal. You want to,
So you're going to be doing it
Yeah.
through the summer?
through the summer, which is why we're bidding it now, so they give them the bid notice to proceed, they can order the equipment, and then get everything in for the summer months.
I have a question about
Yeah.
the tree removal
Mhm.
one. So, we don't know what they're gonna have to do, but
No, what you bid on is a certain number of trees removal, and therefore, you say based on that, but it's an understanding that it's an estimate, because if we had a bad windstorm, we want to have somebody at the ready who's responsive and can do the work, as well as the ongoing work that may, on a day like today, where, a tree comes down, or they're out doing pruning and trimming. So that's how you do it. So that way we have a contract in place, which does two things. One is it makes sure we get a good price, but second of all, make sure we have a supplier who's ready to respond. Because oftentimes in a widespread storm event, it's difficult getting a vendor. So this was sort of, and again, I'll recognize Christine Clancy's foresight, is rather than just sort of dealing with an emergency as it arises under an emergency procurement requirement, is let's get ahead of this and then get somebody in place who we then have a relationship, and then that way, if they are doing it, we know basically with ongoing work with them how we like to have our work done, and we can do it with them, in a cooperative manner. So
it's kinda like having them on retainer.
exactly, but so there's that's the basic of doing it, and so it really does help us out, because we know, we have a tree budget, and we know there's so much work you're going to do in a given year. So this was a good outcome.
Okay.
Anything else?
Paul, on the last one,
Yep.
Can you just explain to me, so it's 800,000 of construction costs, and 100,000 is the design and construction administration services? So what exactly is that?
Well, but they basically go in as they're the ones who come in and actually do the examination of all the equipment, the plumbing, the tie-in work, and everything that goes forward for the purchase of the equipment, as well as installation at, in this case, the McCarthy School and the high school. The best example I can give you contemporary was when we did the senior center. There we had an existing facility, much like we have in the high school and the McCarthy School. You have to basically figure out what can fit in the space, what you need for plumbing, electrical, and so forth, in terms of the needs that they have for the various facilities. So it is almost like designing a structure. They go in there, they specify the equipment that then gets procured, but also make sure that the equipment fits and everything comes together at those two facilities.
Okay, so they spec out the equipment and procure it?
Yeah,
And
for
then
us.
and then the construction
Then the construction is bid
place, and they
separately.
just have to make sure everything
Exactly.
goes in the way they said it would and
Exactly.
works. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you recall what was in the budget for these?
It was two separate ones. The high school is actually one coming forward this spring, and then the McCarthy was funded last year. But again, this is work we want to do over the summer months. So the goal is to get them out and bid right now and designed going forward. I think the high school was roughly around 450, and then I think the McCarthy was 350. So it come out to 800,000 total.
Okay. Anything
Do
else?
you want a motion as presented all in one, or do you want each one?
It's okay with me unless the,
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the town manager's bid awards, all 5 of them, as presented.
I'll second it.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all 6 of them, sorry, as
Sec-
presented.
Second.
any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0.
Thank you. Brief report this evening. First one is I have for you the data on the January sewer flows. And I think it confirms what we've been sensing over time is January was the first month in quite a while that we had above normal rainfall. In fact, we had almost 50% above normal rainfall for the month of January than was traditionally in that month. And if you look at the first cover sheet, you can see the flows in January jumped to, to 88. And yeah, January and December are usually our heaviest months, the winter months. And I think probably the better data is if you look at the next chart that I developed, which is sort of the ongoing 4-year run, you can see how January of this year basically surpassed January of last year and January of 2021. And certainly is the highest flow we've had this year. And as I'm saying, it shows you that, again, looking at this chart, that the highest months are December, January, winter months. But it's extraordinary because two things happened in January. We had extra rainfall. We also didn't have a lot of snow cover. And with the warmer temperatures, you tend to have more saturation to the ground, which we then believe, and we also know from DPW's operations, we had a number of issues in January with icing of roadways coming as a result of some pump operations. So, it gives us an indication that, certainly we have no issues with sewer flow for the current fiscal year, but it does show you the impacts of weather, as we've known, and also what we suspect are likely some illegal tie-ins from sump pumps. And then I had also sent you an email a couple weeks ago, since the last meeting, that was sent to me by the Public Works Director, Christine Clancy, showing that our neighboring town of Barica had a surge, and again, they attribute that, they believe, to sump pumps as well. So anyway, it's very fascinating data. February now, halfway through, it's the opposite. We've basically had a trace of rainfall for the first 2 weeks of this month. And so we're going to obviously see what happens with the February flow. And so, but we'll just stay on this. But again, we're really gearing towards, and again, we're still awaiting state approval of the funding that could be released to do a sump pump pilot project. So I just wanted to let you know that. Also, the other thing in this data from the earlier slide is not only was our flow up, but Tingsboro was up as well. So again, we're seeing it being brought outside the community to the point where, as Director Clancy noted to me, Tingsboro was near their allocated flow for that month. So it just it's quite interesting to see as this moves along in real time.
Paul, have they still been going out and, I don't know what the right word is, cleaning out the catch basins and sort of the tiny stream? I mean, there's a bunch of them that cross North Road. The reason why I'm asking is,
Yeah.
so the end of Rainbow,
Yeah.
there's 3 or 4 houses down at the back corner there. The backyards are flooded, like right up to the back door of these houses.
Mm-hmm.
And it just seems like the water came down a lot faster than normal. And I'm just wondering, upstream from that, was there cleanouts done that has caused now more runoff coming down, or is it just?
I bet you they are. I mean, stormwater's been very active, being proactive out there in terms of doing cleanups and making sure flows are unobstructed. So you're right, there could be people who are having an adverse impact because matters are being
Yeah, so I'm
cleaned.
just sort of wondering
Yeah.
if the DPW maybe could go and make sure there's no blockages downstream, because all of those houses have
Okay.
water up to their back doors.
Okay.
And it
Make a
didn't
note.
seem like a big rain to me, and I was kind of surprised when I was driving back there to see all the water.
Okay. Okay, all right. I'll have them look at that. The next part of my report this evening is I have data from the assessor's office, and our chair of the assessors is here in the audience, but this is February 1st was the deadline for property tax abatement filings, because remember, that's a month after the actual bills are issued for the year. And what you see clearly is a spike in residential filings, probably not unrelated to the fact that the residential properties have appreciated so much from the past year. And you also see a slight decline in commercial industrial. So again, this is just raw data, but I think it's just telling probably of a couple things. One is, your filings have related to your valuations, and the other part is it could also be related to the economy as well, that if you're in a little bit of a tighter period because of the inflationary period, people could be questioning, what their tax bills are a little tighter than they may have been a year ago. So again, where this will go from here is the assessors will consider the abatement applications over the next several months, and then as we close out the fiscal year, we'll see where we are in terms of applications and refunds or abatements to the process. So I just thought it was interesting data report to you, and I want to thank Frank Green, our chief assessor, for supplying it.
Any other comments? Okay, thank you.
And then next item is revisions to the current upcoming proposed fiscal year operating budget. The only significant change that occurred since I presented the budget to the board in the community 2 weeks ago was the Neshoba Tech proposed regional assessment, which is still tentative. But their assessment for Chelmsford for the upcoming year was $3,888,308, and they had a budget hearing last Tuesday. Again, these are subject to change based on the projections, as you can see in the header, and then also in the footer, that it will change based on the governor's numbers that are due out by March 1st. I had carried in the budget $3.9 million, so basically it's about right. It's $12,000 off, which is rather trivial in the scheme of the assessment. So where it goes from here and how it'll affect what I should have for you in 2 weeks is we were promised by the Governor Healy last month when she addressed the Municipal Association that she would provide us with advance notice of our local aid prior to her March 1st filing. So as soon as we get that data, we'll get it out to you. And obviously Neshoba Tech will have it because we'll have to revise their assessments based on their projections. And then the other thing is within 2 weeks, I should also have the health insurance rating premium increases as well. And then that's where we're at. And starting, I believe, this Thursday, Finance Committee will start its budget hearing process. So that's sort of where we're at. And again, I'll keep you updated as this moves along. But again, two big pieces coming up in the next 2 weeks, which is the governor's proposed budget, which should set a baseline for local aid, as well as the health insurance premiums.
Okay,
And then finally, I have the revised draft of the 2023 Spring Annual Town Meeting warrant. The reminder, in 2 weeks, when the board meets on the 27th, you'll be scheduled to sign the warrant for the Spring Annual Town Meeting. Nothing has changed since 2 weeks ago, other than one article was withdrawn, which was a community preservation article from the cemetery department regarding post and rail fencing at one of the cemeteries. I have sent this draft to Town Council Paul Haverty, so I would expect that we'd have the final warrant in hand to be submitted in your packet a week from this Thursday, and then signed on the 27th. So that's, sort of where we are with the town meeting warrant.
okay.
And that concludes my report for this evening.
Thank you, Paul. Next up, we have appointments.
Yes, just two appointments for your confirmation this evening. One is for Sally Ruth Murphy of Slay Road, who is seeking to be appointed on the Holiday Decorating Committee for a term ending December 31st, 2023. As noted in her application, she had volunteered with the decorating committee during the last two holiday seasons. She also attended a public meeting of the committee that was held here on February 1st in the building. So now she's seeking to be formally appointed to the committee. And then the other appointment is to the Council on Aging, to fill a vacancy there, and that's for a term ending June 30th, 2025. And the applicant is Sandra Hall, who many of you may know. She was a former town employee, clerical, and worked at the police station. And her application was forwarded to the Council on Aging. They had a chance to review it and discuss with her, and they fully support Sandra's appointment to the Council on Aging. So I formally seek your approval of these two appointments this evening.
Any questions?
I'll make a motion to approve Sally Ruth Murphy to the Holiday Decorating Committee with a one-year term expiring 12/31/23.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0.
And I'll make a motion to approve Sandra Hall to the Council on Aging Board for a 3-year term expiring June 30th, 2025.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, we have meeting minutes. Let's take January 23rd first. Are there any amendments before we take a motion? If not, I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the Select Board regular meeting minutes from the January 23rd, 2023 meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Next up, we have January 30th. Are there any amendments?
I'll make a motion to approve the January 30th, 2023 Select Board regular meeting minutes.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Okay, so we'll go to liaison reports and referrals. Mark?
I don't have anything tonight. Thank you.
George?
I just want to acknowledge the passing of Mr. Jim Dolan Senior. Real nice guy, and started a small business years ago in North, and obviously in the funeral business, and he's developed into a big business. Really a nice guy. Helped a lot of people over there. Did a lot of work with the church over there as well. So just wanted to acknowledge it. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Ken?
Just two quick updates, and one is more of a compliment than an update. But I took Saturday and walked Roberts Field and the entire property for the first time, doing the whole property, and so compliments to DPW, and Mark, I know you're a liaison to the Roberts Field Advisory Committee, and let them know that it's beautiful, and all the equipment worked great. And
Down there, too.
I visited with someone else from out of town, and they were blown away by that park and everything it does for the different ages and abilities of kids and everything. So kudos to them. And then on Friday, George and I visited the civics class at the high school, and I'll get that written up and get that over to you. But it was, those kids were really excited to get involved, and they had some really good input, so I'll get that typed up.
You should send it directly to Christina, so, and then we'll get it to the whole board in a meeting.
Okay.
Pat?
I have nothing tonight.
Okay. I just have a couple things from the school committee. They will be holding a budget hearing on the FY 2024 superintendent's recommended budget on Tuesday, February 28th at 6 p.m. at the Chelmsford Public School Administration offices. The budget hearing will be televised live on Comcast Channel 22, Verizon Channel 26, and ChelmsfordTV.org. There is a complete copy of the superintendent's recommended budget posted online, and I would suggest that you contact his office to get the link, because it's a very long link that's here in this note. The only other thing I had was a scheduling item. So Ken mentioned that he and George went to the civics class. I know that Pat and Mark are going to the government class this Friday. So I wanted to just know, Paul and I were talking about when do we want to put something on our next agenda to talk about the outcomes from that, or anything else Pat was doing on the young adult side. February 27th, I think, is getting really packed.
Mm-hmm.
So my suggestion was going to be the first one in March,
Yep.
if you guys, unless you guys want to do it faster than that.
Yeah, I think that'll work.
That'll work.
March 13th, okay.
Is it March 13th?
Yeah, it's the
Okay.
exact same days as February.
Yeah, so if you're writing something up, again, I would just, especially if there were two of you at a meeting, just give it directly to Christina. Don't send it to me, and we'll include it in the packet. Okay, that's all I've got. So it is actually 6:53 p.m.
It's a world record.
No, it's longer than I
I'll
thought.
make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
John just got